Well, here's another review of the AMD RX 9070 XT video card. And you can see the title here of this article, which I will link to in the YouTube description down below. I tested AMD's, not me, this guy, Jacob, AMD's RX 9070 XT against the Nvidia RTX 5070, and it isn't pretty. All right, so let's kind of break this down because this article is, well, not super long, but it is kind of long. And by the way, remember to go over here because there's some interesting comments at the end as well. It's always funny. So, well, if you've been following this card, the RX 9070 XT, you probably already know what I'm going to say here. The AMD RX 9070 XT is the clear performance winner, especially at 4K resolution. It consistently outperforms the RTX 5070 in various games, including demanding titles like Cyberpunk 2077. The 9070 XT offers performance closer to the RTX 5070 Ti or Ti, but at a similar price to the RTX 5070. Now, when it comes to video card memory, the 9070 XT offers 16 gigabytes, but it's GDDR6, while the 5070 has 12 gigabytes, but it has the faster GDDR7 memory. But despite that, it really can't compete, especially at 4K. And because of the 9070 XT's larger frame buffer, the more VRAM, the better, especially when it comes to 4K gaming. Now, I know what you're going to say. Nobody is going to be using a 5070 or a 9070 at 4K, but people will. They buy 4K monitors and they want to play at 4K. So, I know. Why wouldn't they just buy a 2K display? Well, I'm not them and you're not them. And if you are them, well, that's your choice, right? I guess what I'm trying to say there, and I'm not poking fun or anything, but if you are planning on gaming at 4K, you need to go higher than a 9070 XT, or for that matter, a 5070 Ti. You really need to get into a 5080 or a 5090, or if you can find maybe a 4080 or a 4090 on special, then go for that. Because at 4K, if you have all the eye candy on, even in that scenario, at 4K with all the eye candy on, everything in epic or ultra settings, even with a 5090 or a 4090, in some cases, if you're playing natively, those cards are going to struggle a little bit. Now, let's talk about upscaling and frame generation. So both of these GPUs support AI-assisted upscaling and frame generation, FSR4 for AMD and DLSS4 for Nvidia. And remember, a second ago, I mentioned playing natively at 4K. That's an important thing to remember. I'm not talking about playing at 4K using these AI upscaling technologies. I'm talking about raw performance. And I know, according to a lot of the polls, the majority of people actually use these AI-assisted upscaling and frame generation technologies. And I know why, because, I get it. Cards are so expensive. People buy middle of the road or maybe a little bit below that, like a 4060. That's the most popular card, apparently, now, at this particular moment, according to Steam. So you have no choice then, right? If you want to play at those super high resolutions, but you're really not playing at those super high resolutions because you're playing at a lower resolution and the technology, the AI technology is actually upscaling it. So it's fake. Now, a little bit of an advantage that NVIDIA has is multi-frame generation, or MFG, and that can increase frame rates dramatically. However, the only caveat with that is you need, a strong frame rate base to begin with, because if you're, for example, only getting like 30 frames per second, multi-frame generation is not going to do much for you. It still will, but if you have a minimum of maybe 60 or 100 frames per second and you're looking for 240 frames per second or something ridiculous, then it would help, but otherwise it probably won't that much. Now, I'll mention the MSRPs for both of these. I know MSRPs mean next to nothing these days, but just as a reference to compare these cards on price when it comes to MSRP, the Nvidia 5070 plain Jane one is $549 US, and the RX 9070 XT is $599. So if you look at those two prices, you go, well, they're maybe about the same performance, and the NVIDIA is cheaper, but the real price of the NVIDIA RTX 5070, when you go to pick it up, is probably going to be a fair amount more than the AMD 9070 XT. So MSRP and real prices, well, they're two different things. Although I think AMD is going to do very well this year, and if that's the case, I hope they have enough stock, and I hope they are predicting that they're going to do very well, and hopefully the prices for these cards won't go through the roof. Now, if you're looking to build a system with either of these cards in it, you will need to obviously pick up a power supply that can actually handle these cards. And the power consumption for the NVIDIA RTX 5070 is actually lower than the 9070. That one, the TDP is 250 watts, and the AMD RX 9070 XT is more at 304 watts. It could be a little bit more than that from reports that I've seen. It's a little higher than that. I know some people get all excited about, it's 325 watts. Well, okay, it's around, let's say between 300 and 325 watts. Does that make everyone happy? So which card should you get? Well, that's your decision to make. But make sure you read lots of reviews. You hear lots of different opinions about it, and from there you can make your own decision. If you're someone who wants to get a card and use AI power technologies, a lower end card, I would probably still stick with Nvidia. But if you're looking for 4K performance, raw power overall, in this case, this one here has 16 gigabytes of VRAM. That will definitely future-proof your purchase. So it really depends. These cards are, to be honest, pretty much neck and neck. Which card are you getting? Let us know.